Trigger warning. The following podcast contains content that may be deeply disturbing. You will hear first-hand accounts from parents and family members who have lost children to filicide, the murder of a child by a parent or caregiver. These stories are raw, emotional, and shared from the perspective of those who have lived them. They include details of unimaginable loss, system failures, and trauma. Please take care while listening. If at any point you need to pause, stop, or step away, we understand. Welcome to Voices Against Filicide. I'm your host, Hope Hooton, a mother who has walked this journey and an advocate turning my pain into purpose. This podcast sheds light on filicide cases, statistics, who these children were, and the advocacy being done in their honor, and so much more. Together, we speak the truth, honor their lives, and fight for change. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to honor two of the brightest lights I've ever known, my children, Alec and Lydia. Alec with his love for Pokemon and his kind heart, and Lydia full of joy and her love of unicorns. They were my whole world. They were joy in human form. Their laughter, their hugs, their imaginations, all of it lives on in me, in this podcast, and in the work I do every day to protect children and raise awareness. This podcast is for them. It's for every child whose voice was silenced too soon. Alec and Lydia, you are my why, and I will never stop fighting in your name. Thank you for joining me today, and let's get right into today's episode. Welcome back to Voices Against Filicide, a podcast dedicated to amplifying the voices of parents, survivors, and advocates who are standing up for the safety and lives of children. Today's episode is one that means a great deal to me. I am truly honored to be joined by Amber Snodgrass and Kandra Durfield, two courageous mothers and founders of Arizona Safe Parents. Amber and Kandra are not only fierce advocates for their own children, but also tirelessly fight for the protection of children across Arizona. Through their lived experience navigating the family court system, they saw firsthand where children are being failed, and instead of staying silent, they took action. Arizona Safe Parents was created to support and educate and advocate for families who are fighting to keep their children safe in systems that too often overlook warning signs and real danger. Amber and Kandra's work is rooted in love, resilience, and an unshakable commitment to ensuring the safety of children and helping parents so that no parent has to stand alone and no child is left unprotected. Their voices, their advocacy, and their courage are making a difference, and I am deeply grateful to have them here with us today. Amber and Kandra, welcome to Voices Against Filicide.
Thank you for having us on, Hope.
So, Amber, I'm going to start with you. Amber, for our listeners who may not know who you are yet, can you share a little bit about yourself and your journey and what got you involved with Arizona Safe Parents?
Sure. My name is Amber. Thank you for having us on, Hope. It's greatly appreciated. I came into family court the most recent time about 10 years ago while I was pregnant with my daughter. I filed for divorce. I came into family court thinking that, if you come in prepared and you have the evidence that you are protected. I came in thinking that your lawyer would fight for you and tell you what they needed and what evidence to bring and give you all the preparation that you needed. and that the judges would protect your children. Um, I got lucky with my first judge. She did protect my daughter. Um, and then shortly after that, I found that it is a horrendous struggle moving forward. If you have a judge that does not fight for what's right and fight for child safety, that it is an uphill battle that abusers find and use to continue your torment. And that is what happened to me has been happening to me for the last 10 years. I found that I've had to do a lot of the legwork and do everything to help keep my daughter safe. And if it was not for the work that I've put in, then my case probably wouldn't have had as many positive outcomes as it has. And so when I found a support group 7 years in, after doing it for 7 years alone, I joined that group and I found some other like-minded parents. And when I saw that they wanted to start some advocacy, I knew that I had to be a part of it. I knew that I had to help other parents figure this out and, most importantly, protect their children.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's kind of crazy that you had to do it all by yourself for 7 years and then you found this group. But by then you had a lot of knowledge because you did it on your own for so long.
I did. And I tried to bring that to everyone that has questions whenever I can without sounding like a know-it-all. I just try to give them assistance whenever I can.
Kandra, can you also tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to on this journey?
Sure. A lot like Amber, in what I thought was going to happen once I got into family court. I came into family court completely unprepared for how destabilizing and dangerous it can be for protective parents. I also believed if you showed up with your evidence, you acted in good faith, you behaved in a way that was in the best interest of your children, that the system was going to work how it was supposed to and keep your children safe. But what I learned instead is that family court often misunderstands abuse, especially coercive control and post-separation abuse. I was fortunate to eventually get to an attorney that understood abuse dynamics, and he did kind of shields me from a lot of that at the end of the process. But it was terrifying going through it. I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep my kids safe or not on a daily basis. So what led me here is twofold. I saw this flawed system. It shouldn't be this hard to protect children. I think that most people, if you ask them, think that they also want to protect children. But the way that the system is set up, it is not working in a way that protects all of the children. And then second, I realized how isolated protective parents are. So I had a supportive family and friends, but unless you have lived inside of family court, people often do not truly understand the level of fear and pressure that parents are facing in family court. So I just wanted to be support to other people who are going through it.
That kind of leads me into another question. As far as the misunderstandings of family court, and I know you can only speak in your experience in Arizona, both Amber and Kandra, but what are some misunderstandings of family court? Because I know I have some that my family and friends would ask me questions and I would say, oh, well, it doesn't work that way, or that's, what are some misunderstandings that my audience can take away that that's not actually how family court works?
Well, you do hear all the time, well, just tell the judge. Just tell him. Just just tell her. You just need to tell them what's happening. And it's quite frustrating that you can't, we can't call up the judge. You can't, write them an email. You have to present it in following the rules of family law procedure, and you have time limits and rules that you have to follow, and it just doesn't always, it's not always as easy as just telling the judge.
Yes. Yeah.
And I will say I've had, I believe, over 50 hearings now in my case. And I've had 6 or 7 final orders trials. And the biggest thing, like she said, for that, people say, well, you just have to tell them what you want to say. And you can't. You don't get to just talk. You have to either answer the question that was asked of you, or your attorney can ask questions of other people, and you can ask your attorney to say certain things, and they may or may not. And there's times where you have a 15-minute hearing and you don't get to say anything. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? That's already over. And
Correct.
Nothing that I wanted to make sure the judge knew got out.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's really important for my listeners to understand is, there's time constraints to everything. You can't just start talking, like have a conversation with the judge. That's not how it works. As far as the judge is concerned, I had people say, well, you can just tell them how you feel. And a lot of it has to be factual. It can't be opinion or feeling based. It has to be driven by facts. That's what I've noticed.
Well, and there's some judges that don't listen to the facts. You can tell them and you can show them. And there's things, I had a judge that was not prepared for my cases. He would ask me questions that had been answered. He got mad at me for doing something he told me to do at our emergency hearing. He would take things that I said or things that came up in our case, and they would be wrong in our final orders. And to fix that is an appeals process, or asking them to fix their mistake. And let me tell you how willing judges are to admit they made a mistake and then actually fix it. That's not something that's going to happen. And then an appeal is for certain legal things. Some of those things might not even qualify as an appeal. And then if it does, you're talking thousands of dollars if you find an attorney that wants to help you, or trying to do it on your own.
Kind of switching gears, for those hearing about Arizona Safe Parents organization for the first time, what is the overall mission and goal of Arizona Safe Parents?
So Arizona Safe Parents exists and was created to center child safety over parental rights when there's credible evidence of abuse, coercive control, or severe mental health concerns. Our goal is to help protective parents whenever we can without offering legal advice.
Yes.
Support them in any way that we can, and help ensure that legislators see the issues and try to get them to fix the issues on that end, while we also, whenever possible, can try and get with judicial committees and other professionals and learn what we can do from that side. It's multifaceted, and we really want to make as much change as we can to protect children.
Yes. And each state has some sort of safe parents organization through the overreaching umbrella is National Safe Parents Organization, which for my audience, if you haven't listened to that episode with Danielle Pollock from NSPO and Kathy Caden's mom, please go back and listen to that. But each state is able to have their own kind of safe parents organization, or whatever they want to call it, that helps parents and helps them advocate for their needs. What kinds of support and advocacy can you provide? You said you can't provide legal advice because you're not attorneys, but what on a day-to-day basis can you help with?
Well, we can provide resources on where to go, what to look for. a lot of times what I've found, and Kandra can comment on this further, is a lot of times because it's so isolating and you feel so alone, like no one understands because really they don't, um, is providing that sense of uh, not necessarily friendship, but maybe friendship, as well as just someone that can listen and maybe tell you what happened in their experience and where it might be going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kandra?
Well, I think also, we try to, if you need someone to come to a hearing, sometimes it's helpful just to know that you have somebody on your side sitting in the courtroom with you. We, can direct you to different resources that we may know about, depending on what it is that's going on in your case. So I think we just try to do what we can where we can.
And we are a new organization and we don't have funding. So everything that we are trying to do, we're doing on our own. We did reach out to other organizations, the Tennessee Safe Parents Organization. They were a huge help, in getting us started and kind of giving us direction because we were just unsure of how to proceed. We had a resource in One Mom's Battle, where we kind of got some not instruction, but some advice on how to move forward and what to do. So sometimes, like the rest of everyone else in the world, we are winging it and we're trying to do our best to help as many people as we can with whatever we can.
Yeah. And I think, I can only speak in my experience and it's after the fact, right? But the amount of support that Amber and Kandra have given me, and even after my case, right? They helped me, like they're saying, if I needed somebody to talk to and kind of get out of my head and share my story of what happened, then they would share their experiences. And so some of their experiences mirrored my experiences, and it's helped me process things in my own head. They've also helped with, resources, and, they've helped me with getting people on this podcast, and, kind of widening my net of advocates around the country. So I give you a round of applause, and I'm so humbled that I call you a friend now, both of you. You're not just random ladies that have helped me on the internet. You are friends.
Well, I feel the same way, Hope. I was really nervous reaching out to you for the first time. I had seen your, I saw an article. I live in the area where your children were murdered, and it hurt my soul every time I saw it. And I saw your article about wanting to get involved, and I asked the other parents in our group. It's not just Kandra and I. There are people
There are other people, yes,
that are co-founders and involved. There's a very real fear of retaliation for being involved in something like this, and that is a problem in itself. However, so we don't put their names out there. But I wanted to reach out to you, and I just felt it over and over. And finally, I said, guys, I really think I should reach out to Hope. I think that she needs her voice heard here in Arizona even more than it has been. And I feel like this would be something that could make real change. So I appreciate you being receptive to me when I did reach out, and for all the hard work that you're doing. I can't even imagine being in your shoes. And so many of us have the fear of being in your shoes, and that's what we're trying to help with.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you guys and the whole ASPO has been so supportive. The amount of support I got at the Arizona Judicial Committee meeting, all these people came out to support me, and half the people that came to support me, including yourself, Amber and Kandra, I never met any of you in person until that day. And the amount of support that you rallied around to make sure that my story got heard by the Chief Justice and the council meant a lot to me. And I know that we were standing in that room, and we got all of the things said that we wanted to say. But there is still things that need to be changed, obviously, and we're still working together to make those changes. Was Arizona Safe Parents established during or after your court cases? And what support could they have given you if they were established even beforehand? So kind of hindsight, if Amber, if they were in your pocket the 7 years prior, what do you think that outcome could have been?
Well, we didn't create Arizona Safe Parents until last year. And so I was 9 years into my case by that point. I had found the support groups online 2 years before that. So I just watched more than anything for those 2 years. I didn't really know how to get involved with it. So my case was very much involved and had moved forward for years before I had the benefit of Arizona Safe Parents. And just it would have made a huge difference. I can't tell you how many times I felt alone, how many times I didn't know if I was wording an email the right way, or I didn't know, if my daughter was going to come home that day and I was having a panic attack because I just didn't have anyone that understood. And now I do. And sometimes I feel like I've had a very active case. As anyone in our group knows. And so while I do get a lot of feedback on my own information, I try to always make sure that I reciprocate that and give it to other people when they are in need too. Because I don't want to just go in there and be a taker. But sometimes, as some of them reminded me, there's times we take turns. There's times where somebody needs more support than somebody else, and that's okay. And, and that made it hard for me to, or easier for me to accept that sometimes I needed to ask for that help more than others. It would have made all the difference in the world. I think that it would have decreased my anxiety. It would have helped me. I spent so much time reading Arizona state laws and the rules. So there's the state laws, and then there's the family law rules, which are basically the law that the judges have created based on the state laws. And that's what they use. And so there were things I didn't know we could do. The things that I couldn't do. And I read it all, and it changes, as we know, annually it can change. So I've spent many, many hours making sure that I had all of that up to date in my head. But just being able to ask, hey, has anyone seen any update on this law or this statute, whatever, would have been a huge help in my case.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I would have known about it. I had no idea until after the fact. But I am happy that we are supporting parents through this organization and giving them support and ways to advocate for their needs. Kandra, did you have anything to add?
Well, my case is pretty quiet right now. So getting involved came after final orders for me. I don't think that I would have been able to, without a structure already set up, I don't think I would have been able to give much support to other people while I was going through my case, because it took so much out of me. And I think that that's how it is for most parents. I think that they just are feeling lost and alone and worried. So it is nice to be able to kind of grab onto a parent that is just getting into the process and they don't know what's going on. And you can just tell that they find relief in that there's somebody else who's been through it. It doesn't take away all of the fear or anything, but there is something about being understood for for what you're going through.
Yeah. I know that you guys helped me in my case really, really push for opening up and doing a motion to try to unseal my records in my case. And if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have done that. And through that, I've had support getting that, done, and it's in the process. But without your advice and your guidance of like, you should do this, I wouldn't have done that. And we're still in the process. So hopefully those records in my case can be unsealed. But again, if it wasn't for Arizona Safe Parents and your guidance on that, I wouldn't have done that. Kandra, I want to talk specifically to you. You sat with me personally as we reviewed the psychological reports, evaluations, and some of the court records that I personally have. The audience, I want to note that my full case, like I said, is sealed, but I still have some of the records. And Kandra has sat with me and gone through those records. Can you share some of the most disturbing findings you've noticed in those records that you've reviewed with me?
Yeah. So I mean, first I want to say that I'm not a clinician or an expert. So I just looked through line by line and compared what was documented to what established research says that a court should be taking seriously when evaluating child safety. So what stood out immediately were his documented psychotic symptoms, especially the religious delusions, religious preoccupation, paranoia. He had some extreme sleep deprivation and disorganized thinking, and all of that occurred around the children. And several factors should have been treated as immediate red flags. So this was his first manic episode with psychosis. The marked religious preoccupation. Research shows us that those who are in psychosis and they have that religious preoccupation are some of the most dangerous people experiencing that at that moment. There were documented concerns in your case on domestic violence and sexual violence. And research consistently shows that, the first bipolar episode with mania plus psychotic features is, it's pretty unpredictable. You don't know how you in particular are going to react from that.
Yeah.
And they do say that, it's very likely that a person will relapse and have another episode, even if they're undergoing treatment, even if they're on medication, even within the next 6 months, it's very high risk that it's going to happen. And a lot of those concerns with the documents that we do have, the court documents that you do have, it shows that almost as if the judge took every risk factor and turned it into a reason why it was safe for the kids. And that was very concerning because either he doesn't know the risk factors, which is a concern, or he willfully did that knowing how dangerous it was for them. Either way, it's concerning, it's very scary, and it's not acceptable.
Correct. And that's what I want to prevent with the child safety bills that I am specifically working on, specifically at the Alec and Lydia Act in honor of my children. And I know that putting safeguards in place as it pertains to what a judge needs to do when a person comes into their courtroom who has experienced a mental health crisis. This bill will help them kind of outline a procedure and what they need to look at and those findings and pay real close attention to them. So I'm really excited to show and put in effect the Alec and Lydia Act and kind of start that process of legislation with that, and we'll see where that goes. I keep getting direct messages and comments on social media of how someone can help with the Alec and Lydia Act in Arizona, but also with the other child safety bills that will be coming out in this legislative session. Can you guys talk about what someone can do as a citizen in Arizona to help support these bills?
Well, one thing they can do for our group is going to be tracking the bills. There will be some that look like maybe they won't be great for protective parents, and we will put our stance out on our website. There's also not our website, I'm sorry, our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram. And I don't know, I think we might have another one, but I don't know how active it is yet. And there's the system downtown at the Capitol. You sign up online, you go down. You actually made a video showing yourself on that kiosk. Kandra has the information on what it's called, and we have information on how to sign up for it on our social media. That way people can go online after they're logged in and validated, and they can vote on specific bills and say whether they're supporting it or not supporting it. I think that's a really important thing. If anyone can go down and speak, if it does impact them, or if they know how it can impact someone negatively or positively, then we absolutely need people to go and speak for those. Sharing on social media if they can't do anything else. Word of mouth. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, your coworkers. I can't tell you how many people have come forward to me since I started getting loud, because I was afraid to get loud and I was afraid to say anything because I didn't want it to be used against me in court, because so many things are used against you in court that you would never think, as much as you try to be perfect and try to do every little thing the right way and by the book, somebody somewhere is going to tell you it was the wrong way and you did it wrong. And now it's going to be used to say that you were being combative or you were doing something to cause a problem in your case. You were being high conflict. So once I decided that it was more important for me to get my words out there and get my experience out there and share it and make sure, I shouted from the rooftops to get people involved. So many people came out of the woodwork and told me their experiences, and they message me privately and they say, thank you so much for saying something, because I didn't know. One. Two, I felt like no one else would understand what I'm going through. But now I know that it's more prevalent than I thought.
Very prevalent.
And that's huge. Just getting people to know they're not alone and that they can go out and fight for it also. So getting involved in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what you do to get involved. Just start something. One step forward. That's all you have to do.
And we will put all the links. I will actually put the link to the Arizona Safe Parents Facebook and Instagram pages in the show notes. I'll also put the video link that I made in the show notes as well. And Kandra, can you explain more of the system?
Sure. Yeah, the request to speak system, you can find it on the Arizona Legislature website. RTS, it's commonly called. So in there, you can track bills. You can look up agendas for like committee hearings. I guess I'll explain that first. Basically, you can set up your account from home, set up a username and a password, but it's not active until you log in at least one time from the Capitol. So you can walk into either the House of Representatives building or the Senate building, and just log in on one of their computers there. So the Senate building, as soon as you walk in, those computers are just right there in the front. At the House of Representatives, though, you will have to like go through security, and then they're kind of over on the side down a hallway. So if you go into that one, it's a little bit harder to find, but there's usually like someone sitting up front that can give you like some directions on that. But once you've logged in that first time, then you can just do everything from home. You can go in there, you can mark your support, mark your opposition. It does allow you to put, it's not very long, but maybe like a couple sentences on why you support it, why you oppose it. You can mark neutral as well. You can mark that you're a registered voter so that the lawmakers know that you are a constituent. And then you can also use that same system to sign up to speak at a hearing if you would like to do that. So that system is really helpful for them to see how many people who does this matter to, and if they only see 2 or 3 people at the hearings and nobody's really reaching out to them and nobody's marked their support or opposition in there, sometimes they take that as nobody really cares about this. It must not be an issue.
Yeah. So when
that would be the biggest thing is that, where you can try your hardest. It is a little crazy. It gets crazy at the legislature, and things happen quickly, and hearings come up, and sometimes we only have a day's notice or a week's notice. So I do understand that it is difficult for people who work and have families and responsibilities. But whatever you can do to show up to those hearings, it really makes a big impact when we have a lot of parents sitting in the room.
And then we have, www.azleg.gov. You can go there and you can find your legislator. You can find your district. You don't have to only email your district representative or senator. You can email all of them. And something we may be able to help you with is crafting an email or a message to them with the information that you want to give them, supporting or requesting that they do not vote yes, whichever way we're going on that particular bill, or what's important to them. Maybe you just want to reach out and tell them, hey, you should listen to these girls. They're right. Yeah. Whatever you can do, they need to hear from people.
Yes.
So they know it's important.
Yes, 100%. Thank you so much. That's such important information. So please, we will have all the links for that information down in the show notes for you to go right after you listen to this episode and make your account and help support the bills that need to be changed in Arizona to protect children. On that note, in your opinion, Amber and Kandra, what changes do you believe are most urgently needed in Arizona Family Court to truly protect children?
Go ahead, Kandra.
Well, me personally, I think that one of the most important things is that coercive control must be recognized as serious child harm, and not dismissed as conflict. I love what Dr. Cochiola says. She says that coercive control is the underpinning of all abuse. And it's the point, the point of the abuse is control. So different abusers are going to use different tactics, but the motivation is all the same. They're trying to control. And judges and court professionals, they need mandatory training on abuse dynamics. Right now, I believe that they are only required to do like 6 hours within the first 2 years or something. That may not be the exact requirement, but it's something very low.
It's very minimum. Yeah.
Yes. And we can tell by orders that come out from courts that they don't even use the right verbiage for things. You can tell oftentimes whether someone is trained in abuse and coercive control. So the other thing is just that domestic violence experts consistently find that most abusers do not meaningfully change. So they complete short programs and anger management that really, and anger management is not designed to address entitlement or control. And so these little short things often help them become more strategic, learning how to avoid visible injury, shifting to coercion, intimidation, and psychological abuse. And so it's really important that our court professionals can see that happening. Endless chances for, harmful parents that's doing nothing for our children. So for me, it's just that the judges and the court professionals need to recognize all of these different things that are creating so much harm for our children. And then also, they need real accountability for our judges. I know Amber mentioned earlier, if they do make a mistake, they're very unlikely to change that, to fix it. If you try to appeal something, unless there's a legal error, your appeal will not be accepted. They're not going to change it for anything. Like you have to make the case that there's been a legal error. So there's no accountability for these judges. They can ignore warning signs. They can be wrong. They can make serious mistakes, like just clerical mistakes that they won't fix. And there's really no avenue to get that corrected or have that addressed.
And I think, having been involved in this for so long, I have a long list of things that I think need to be changed. I think judicial discretion is very dangerous when you get it's a great tool. They're supposed to work in a positive way where they can look at what's going on, and they can make that judgment call, because that's what they're supposed to do. But when you get a judge that isn't consistent or doesn't care or has some of their own bias, something that we were trying to find earlier, we know that Dr. Bandy Lee said, I looked it up because Kandra and I were talking about it, and she is just a super strong advocate for this. And we all kind of look up to her and watch what she does and says. But something it says, family courts are armed with discretion, judicial immunity, and the authority to blanket seal their records are able to get away with unspeakable miscarriages of justice. Mm-hmm. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous. I had one judge, and let's say child support should be very cut and dry, right? You have an actual tool that tells you what to put in there. But I had probably 4 different orders by the same judge, because again, I've had multiple orders. And in one, he decided I was going to get credit for my other children. In the next order, I wasn't getting credit for those children. On one, they attributed what he could make. On the other, now he's being attributed minimum wage. So there's no consistency with that. And that is a huge issue. They should be held to a standard, and there's no recourse when they're not. Like I said, I got lucky with my first judge. She did have 20 years of domestic violence experience. She asked him questions during our order of protection hearing that were directly from lethality risk factors. And that came up in our case. And because of that, even though my lawyers told me, do not ask for supervised visits, that never happens, she did it because of the dangers that came up in my case. My next judge took that away because time had passed and there were no new instances. So on paper, our our statutes, our domestic violence statute looks pretty good. And our best interest statute also looks very good on paper. But you get into terms like discretionary terms, like, is it significant domestic violence? Well, there are certain things that should qualify as significant domestic violence, period. But they don't. Strangulation being one of them, sexual assault, any of those things, one time should be significant. But they can take it and they can say they did all of these things, but we're not going to say it's significant this time. So they can still share legal decision making with you, which they then turn around and use to control you or harm your child. And there's nothing you can do about it. You have to keep working with them, because if you don't, now they're going to accuse you of some terms that we're not going to name and say that you're interfering with their relationship. And now you can lose custody because they're saying that you're causing the problem. So that's a huge thing. Judicial discretion, judicial immunity. If they cause harm to someone because they were neglectful, they didn't do their job, they saw the facts before them, like your case. That is sickening to me, that nothing can happen when he should. Any common sense person can look at this case and know that your children should have been protected. And they weren't. And now you can't do anything about it with him. That's not right.
And he did all those things that you said, right? He has judicial immunity. He used his own discretion and didn't use his, and he also sealed the case right after, so he did all of those things to
right. And that is not okay. The other things for me is that I think children should have a voice. Mm-hmm. I think that for Arizona specifically, something near and dear to my heart is that there's no rules or regulations for supervisors. And then when I talk about supervisors, I mean they're supervising parents with their court-ordered supervised visitation with their child.
Yes.
My ex-husband created a company to supervise people while he was currently being supervised.
Wow.
I attempted to try and change that. I contacted some people in 2020 and got no responses back. But now we have legislators listening to that. And it's so important. Anyone from anywhere can create an LLC and they can be supervising you with your child or your ex-husband or wife with the child. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea what their history is. So that for me is a big thing that needs to change in Arizona law.
Yes, I completely agree. As far as the mental health piece, because that's the piece I'm coming from with the Alec and Lydia Act, there is no statute right now that defines that. What do you think, in your opinion, how will that help, with kind of partnering with the domestic violence? Because we notice in filicide cases that domestic violence and filicide are linked. So, and mental health. And so you can't have one really without the other. And so how do you think the proposed bill that we're going to propose will help Arizona children stay safe?
I think that one thing that we really noticed in your case, Hope, and that we see in a lot of filicide cases, is that there's layered risk. It's not just one thing. It's many things that had to be ignored along the way. So like you said, there were mental health concerns. So mental health concerns on their own aren't necessarily something that should keep you from parenting your child. But it was the details of his mental health concerns, but it was also the layered risk of the domestic violence, the sexual violence, the coercive control,
threats of suicide.
Right. Yeah. So there were so many risk factors, which just layered upon layer upon layer in your case, that it is shocking that no one said There's blame to go around. I wouldn't put it all on the judge, although he had the final say there. But DCS did an investigation, and the psychologist, while he picked up all of those risk factors, I don't feel like he interpreted it and wrote it out a way that the judge was
gonna notice it.
Really clear on how dangerous all of these things that he noted. He noted that there was religious preoccupation, but he didn't explain why that was
significant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah. I think that just for me to have gone through what I've gone through, and I talk about it a lot, but you would think that a lot of these laws that we're trying to push for would already be in effect, right? Would already be protecting children, especially in 2026. And that's not the case. Like when I talk about, like we've talked about domestic violence and coercive control and having those risk factors and, the mental health piece and strangulation, all of these things should have already been in legislation, passed in legislation years ago. So it's kind of crazy that we're in 2026 and we're still working on these things to pass them to keep children safe.
Well, and I think part of the issue is that there's a very real fear that some of these statutes can be used by abusers and twisted into being used against protective parents. A lot of protective parents are accused of being crazy. They're accused of all kinds of other things. And so what is so important about your bill is that there's going to be protections in place. It's not going to be, oh, you have anxiety.
No.
Now you don't get to see your kids. That's not how it is. And so I think that's a very important part of the Alec and Lydia Act. If in my case, I have requested a psychological evaluation multiple times, but again, with a judge that didn't want to do it. So that was denied. Once I moved counties, the court advisor that I got a professional in my case, which is actually kind of scary a lot of times, in that I found out later, because they kind of have a lot of control in your case and you don't know who they are either. But she recommended he get a psychological evaluation. It was done. I didn't get the results from the complete psychological evaluation for, I think, about a year and a half. And then it was decided that he was dangerous and there should be supervision. So that year and a half,
yeah,
my daughter was there.
She is still in his care.
In a dangerous situation. Yeah. My anxiety got so high. I have PTSD because I was terrified she wasn't going to come home every time she went there because it might be the time that he snapped.
Yep.
And that's
what the Alec and Lydia Act is going to prevent.
Yeah, it should make sure that when someone has these dangerous mental health issues, not just mental health issues, they have dangerous mental health issues, there will be protections put into place to protect those children. And that's how it should be.
Yeah. It says in the statute that they define voluntarily being held in a mental health facility as well as involuntarily. And they talk about if you are either one of those records have to be looked at before a child can be unsupervised with that parent. And I think that's huge, especially because in my case, none of the records were ever looked at. It was just word of mouth. Oh, I'm fine. This is what I have. But no actual proof from a medical provider was ever given.
Well, and they wanted you to provide it, and you're not legally able to provide it.
Correct, because the HIPAA, yes, I couldn't.
Right.
I'd have access to it at the time. So, yeah, I think that what we're trying to do, and my motto in things is doing something is better than doing nothing. So at least trying to, make these changes is better than doing nothing and just sitting there and letting it happen over and over again. So I think that's where I'm coming from. For our last question, what piece of hope can you give our audience that you would provide either to a parent going through a situation that's scared about their child's safety, or what might be coming down the pipeline in Arizona legislation? I want to end on a positive, hopeful note.
I would just say, when we talk to legislators, as well as, other professionals in the community, once they understand what is happening in family court, I can see that they want to change it. It might not be their main issue, but I can see that they care and they didn't realize that that was happening. Shining sunlight on these things, it really does matter. Making sure that everybody understands what is actually happening, because family court is such a kind of a, undercover type of thing. People don't always know what's happening in there. And they will say that it's, for the best interests of the children. And these are people's personal family details. And while I do understand that, sometimes that leads, that leaves a really good opportunity for a lot of bad to happen, I guess. So I guess that gives me hope, is that once you are able to really explain to someone what is happening and they start to get it, you see that they want to help.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I think something that Kandra said to me was that, or put somewhere recently, sunlight matters, and shining a light on the issues that we're facing is going to force people to make change. They can't sit there and say, oh, well, Hope, your children died. Amber, Kandra, your kids might be in danger, but oh well.
Okay.
Nobody's going to think like that. We want to protect children. We want to make sure that they're all safe.
Yeah.
But how do we do that safely? Most cases that make it to trial in family court, it's because there's abuse on one end or the other. These high conflict cases are not high conflict cases. They are abuse cases. And that's what needs to be recognized. And once that is, I think that there can be huge change. Some of the abusers change it around. There's a term called DARVO. They deflect it and they make it seem like you are the abuser. I've been accused of everything under the sun, but every piece of evidence that I have negates that. And so moving forward, I think that knowing that when you go into the court system, find some support, first of all. Second, they do make the right call. It happens. There are good judges.
There are.
And there are people that are trying to protect your children, but you have to be organized. And I know that it's hard to when you are an abuse victim. You have to get somebody to help you be organized if you can't do it yourself. And you have to make sure you play by their rules. They do not like people that don't listen to court orders. If you stop listening to court orders, you can get in trouble. The only time that you can is when you have proof that they are in immediate danger. And you have to have proof of that. You can't say, I think they are, and withhold. You can't do things like that. So it's very important to follow the rules and do what you are expected to do. And it's very difficult. And then, making sure you have all of that evidence and go in and play it the right way and win safety for your children. Mm-hmm. That's what you have to do. And I think that having certain legislators on the side of the children, not on the side of any particular parents group, that's going to be our biggest win coming into this next session and hopefully future. I hope other people listen to them too, is that they want to, they know what's right and wrong, and they want to protect kids, and they're going to. I have every faith that they're going to. We just have to make sure our voices are heard, and they know if they do something that may not protect a child, but they have good intentions, that maybe we and other domestic violence advocacy groups let them know, hey, this is how that could be dangerous, because legislators are also not perfect. They're not going to always know. They don't have training on those things either. So we have to bring that sunlight. We have to show them the way to move forward that isn't dangerous. And we all can make sure that we protect the kids.
Yes. Speak out and share your voice. I talk about all the time on this podcast that silence is harmful to children. Silence kills. That's my statement that I use because it's true. And so that's why I made this podcast, and I'm pushing for awareness, and I'm talking to you guys and to everyone else that I've had on this season and will continue to have on this season, because it is important. And I fully believe that people need to stand up and fight for their children and speak out if they've went through an experience, because the more people that do so, the more legislators and people in power will listen. So thank you, Amber. Thank you, Kandra. I so appreciate you being on today's episode. For our listeners, if you found this episode engaging and you want to share it, please go and share it with anyone and everyone. Also, please make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review, and come back next time for our next episode of Voices Against Filicide. See you then.